Today, we're taking a journey far, far away from the sunlit peaks of Mount Olympus. We're heading deep into the shadows. We're going to uncover the true, incredibly dramatic epic of Greek mythology's absolute most misunderstood ruler, Hades. So if you think you already know the big bad villain of the ancient world, well, get ready, because we're about to completely shift your perspective. The legendary Greek king Agamemnon actually hit the nail on the head when it came to the visceral terror of the ancient world. Homer wrote that Agamemnon asked, "Why do we loathe Hades more than any god, if not because he is so adamantine and unyielding?" You can literally hear the dread in that, right? He was the one god they absolutely dreaded. But as we unpack the original myths today, we really have to ask ourselves, was all this immense fear actually justified, or was the guy just stuck doing a totally thankless job? Section 1. The Battle for the Cosmos. To really understand the king of the underworld, we've got to go back to the brutal, super violent dawn of the universe. I mean, just imagine the absolute trauma of this guy's early life. Right at birth, as the firstborn son, he gets swallowed whole by his severely paranoid father, the Titan Cronus. So he basically spends his entire infancy trapped in pitch darkness until his youngest brother Zeus pulls off this daring rescue mission and forces Cronus to literally regurgitate his siblings. Gross, I know, but it worked. And the struggle definitely didn't end there. Hades stepped up as a vital frontline warrior. Armed with this incredible helm of invisibility forged by the Cyclops, he fought right alongside his brothers in the Titanomachy. That was a brutal, world-shaking 10-year war that finally overthrew the Elder Gods. The main takeaway here? He wasn't some lurking coward. He was a conquering hero. So how exactly was our conquering hero rewarded? Well, the three victorious brothers, Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades, decided to draw lots to divide up the universe. Zeus ends up claiming the glorious, wide-open sky. Poseidon gets the vast, dynamic oceans. And Hades? Yeah, he drew the short straw. He inherited the murky, completely unseen realm beneath the earth. While his brothers got to live up in the bright light, he was banished to the shadows just to manage the dead. Section 2, Ruler of the Realm of the Dead. Let's follow him down into the dark to see how he actually ran things. Okay, so pop culture almost always paints Hades as this evil, scheming villain, or literally as death itself, but we really need to clear that up. Compare him to Thanatos. Hades is just the unyielding king, a cosmic jailer of souls, and this completely impartial maintainer of universal balance. He's actually surprisingly passive. Thanatos, on the other hand, is the actual, chilling personification of death who actively claims mortals. Basically, Hades doesn't kill you. He just runs the cosmic prison you end up in, making entirely sure that absolutely no one ever escapes. And wow, what a prison it was. To even reach Hades, souls had to navigate these 5 terrifying rivers. First up, Acheron, the river of sorrow. Then Cocytus, which is just echoing with lamentation. Phlegethon, which is literally blazing with fire. Lethe, the waters of oblivion, where all your earthly memories get completely wiped away. And finally, the infamous river Styx, the river of hate. That one formed the ultimate, absolutely unbreakable boundary between the living and the dead. It's an incredibly dark, isolated place. And remember, Hades ruled it all by himself. Section 3, the drama of Persephone. We are shifting from cosmic rules to some serious high tragedy now. This is the defining, heartbreaking myth of Hades' desperate quest for a queen, and the tension just constantly escalates. It all kicks off with a sudden, violent abduction. Hades bursts up from the earth at Nysa and steals away Persephone, the daughter of the harvest goddess Demeter. Naturally, Demeter is devastated. She casts a terrible curse, plunging the entire earth into a crushing famine. We're talking humanity actually starting to starve here. The situation gets so dire that Zeus is forced to send Hermes down to intervene. But Hades, always the strategist, pulls off one final fateful trick before she leaves. He feeds Persephone a pomegranate seed, and according to the ironclad laws of the underworld, eating the food of the dead binds you to that realm for eternity. But wait, let's look at Hades' perspective for a second. In the Homeric hymns, right as Persephone is about to leave with Hermes, he tells her, "Go now, Persephone, I shall be no unfitting husband for you among the deathless gods, that am own brother to Father Zeus." Hear that? That is not the cackling of some cartoon monster. That is a lonely, very proud king, demanding his rightful respect. He's offering her absolute sovereignty over all that lives and dies. He truly sees her as his equal. Since she ate that seed, Persephone couldn't just leave forever. So Zeus had to step in and orchestrate this massive cosmic compromise. She spends a portion of the year, 8 months, above ground with her mother, which gives us the blooming, vibrant life of spring and summer. But for the remaining 4 months, she has to descend back to her husband in the dark. And during those months, Demeter mourns, the earth turns completely barren, and winter falls upon mankind. Think about that. This one massive family drama literally birthed the seasons as we know them. Section 4. Mortals in the underworld. Let's see what happens when the living show up uninvited. So, while Hades was mostly isolated down there with his queen, his peace was occasionally shattered by arrogant mortals. Take Sisyphus, for example. Now, Hades was usually pretty indifferent to the world above, but his wrath was absolute if you tried to cheat his system. Sisyphus actually had the nerve to trick death itself. He locked up Thanatos and later lied his way back to the world of the living. When Hades finally caught him, oh man, the punishment was exquisitely cruel. Sisyphus was condemned to roll a massive boulder up a steep hill for all eternity, only for it to roll all the way back down right at the top. The underlying lesson here is pretty clear. You do not mock the balance of the underworld. But there was one incredibly beautiful, tragic exception to his usual ruthlessness. The legendary musician Orpheus actually descended into the underworld to retrieve his dead wife, Eurydice. And he played music so profoundly beautiful, so filled with absolute grief, that it literally moved the unyielding king to tears. In this stunning display of totally uncharacteristic mercy, definitely urged on by Persephone, Hades agreed to let Eurydice go. But true to his nature, he set one fatal condition. Orpheus could not look back at her until they reached the surface. It's this incredibly rare, heartbreaking glimpse of pure emotion from the Dark King, even if the myth ultimately ends in tragedy when Orpheus inevitably looks back. And then, of course, there's Heracles, who succeeded where literally everyone else failed. Why? Because instead of tricking or fighting his way in, he showed respect. For his final labor, which was to capture the 3-headed dog Cerberus, Heracles was first initiated into the Eleusinian mysteries. Then he actually just marched up to Hades and asked for permission. And guess what? Hades agreed. The only catch was that Heracles had to subdue the beast without using any weapons. It just goes to show that Hades really wasn't unreasonable. He simply demanded the respect fitting of a cosmic king. Section 5. The Giver of Wealth. We're in the final act now. Let's see how his legacy evolved. Can you even imagine the suffocating terror the ancient Greeks felt? Their fear of the unseen was so intense that they developed these deeply superstitious rituals. For starters, they outright refused to ever swear oaths in his name. When they offered him black sheep as sacrifices, they would actively turn their faces away, terrified to even glance in his direction. And because his realm was deep below, they would literally bang their hands flat on the dirt just to make absolutely sure the Lord of the Dead was listening to their prayers. And that brings us to a really fascinating linguistic shift. Because they were so utterly terrified to even say the name Hades out loud, the Greeks started using a euphemism. They started calling him Pluton, which basically translates to the wealthy one or the giver of wealth. If you think about it, it makes total sense. Everything precious, gold, silver, gems, and even the fertile soil that grows all our crops, it all comes from beneath the earth. It comes from his domain. So over time, this sheer visceral terror birthed a brand new, highly positive identity that celebrated his abundance, which the Romans later adopted and immortalized as Pluto. So there you have it, the true dramatic epic of the Shadow King. He definitely wasn't the devil, and he wasn't evil. He was just the eldest brother who unfortunately drew the short straw, forced to maintain the ultimate tragic balance of the cosmos in total isolation. So I'm going to leave you with this final thought. Was he an unyielding monster or just a lonely guardian of balance? How are you going to remember Hades now? Thanks for diving into this myth with me today, and hey, keep questioning what you think you know.